Ciao amici e benvenuti nella peso sulla luna. Hello friends. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know from my attempt at an Italian introduction to this video that this is my series in which I use Terre de Marseille adjacent or antique Italian decks to help me unpack or to get a central message from the larger spread I do earlier in the week. And I've begun my deep dive into the Lenormand system. So this video is a reaction to that Lenormand spread. And if you have not seen that larger spread, the Lenormand spread for this week, I highly recommend that you go watch that video first and then come back to this one. So I'll put a card up here for you to be able to click on and go watch that, because knowing the basis, the foundation from which the question for this week's video is being asked will be of great benefit. You will understand why I'm reading these cards in the way I'm reading these cards. Because the question I ask for this response video is, what is the central message of this last Lenormand spread? So, the answer to that question is based on the information from the earlier spread. And you don't have to watch any of these videos all in one piece. You can watch them in bits and pieces. There's no YouTube police out there that's going to arrest you for not following the rules and watching a whole video all in one sitting. Yeah? So, go watch that video. If you have seen that video already, and it's been a while, you want a little bit of a refresher, just remember that the title for that video was The Mustard Seed. In Greek, sinapi. And it's a Bible reference, right? To the mustard seed that grows into a larger plant. And that was, I think, the allegory for this week's Lenormand spread, that something small sets us off on a journey of transformation and transition that grows and becomes large and transforms our lives. And that it could be rooted in our own traditions, in our own families, but it's also rooted in our learning and our study. Yeah? It's a journey, it's a positive journey, a journey of hope, of very positive developments if we allow ourselves to be open to that transition, which is not necessarily going to be a direct path forward, but it could be a windy road, right? All that was mentioned in the last video. So, I've got a spread laid out. And friends, we're going to read the spread together. I may have made a mistake when it comes to the Oracle deck. I was going to only choose one Oracle card, but then I thought, well, you know, I've been doing 3 Oracle cards with the 3 Tarot cards for the last few weeks, and that seems to work out, so I'll just pull 3 for this deck too, and let's see what happens. And I don't know if this is really going to be helpful or not. Let's see. Let's read this together. So friends, help me. Help all of us, actually. As you look at what I'm going to do now, I'll show you the entire spread. And we'll talk about what you saw very, very briefly, especially if you're new here. You'll see, I'll tell you what it was you just saw. And then we'll break the spread into its 2 component parts and read those 2 component parts together. Yeah? So I'll show you the spread, and while you look at that spread, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You'll be a great benefit for the channel and for other people as well. So thank you. And here's the spread. So friends, you just saw 2 sets of 3 cards, right? The 3 cards on the top are from a tarot deck that is a facsimile of the Eduardo Dotti Lombardy Tarot from 1865. The copy I got was from Deviant Moon. Yeah, Patrick Valenza of Deviant Moon has this deck and made a facsimile deck and is selling this deck. It's a bit of a petite deck, even compared to other Tarot de Marseille decks. This is a little on the small side, so if you've got small hands, it's wonderful. It's not itsy bitsy, so I can still work with it. It's got a good wax finish to the cardstock, so it shuffles nicely. It's not glossy. It's very, very nice. It's got sharp corners, just so you know, but you can always trim those off if you want. So this is a wonderful deck, and I'll show you the backs of the deck when we look at the cards individually. So lovely deck on top. And it really is an Italian reworking of a type 1 Tarot de Marseille. And we won't really see any indications really of why I say that, but if you get the deck and you see the whole thing, the moon is front facing, yeah, the Cupid has a blindfold, the Chariot has a shield in the front. I don't think it has the initials of the publisher, but I think it does have the crinoline on the top of the Chariot. There are many indications that point to it being a type 2. I'm sorry, a type 1 deck. And it's trying to be, it's printed in the Italian style, which is not woodblock, but it's like they were trying to mimic a woodblock printing with the Italian printing style, it's just really interesting. It's an interesting deck. So there is that. Now the 3 cards below you saw were from an oracle deck, also from Deviant Moon, called the Zammer Twins Oracle. And I paired this with this deck because it's got that kind of the similar printing style. It's not a woodblock print. Now, if the top 3 cards were printed in traditional woodblock print, I'd probably have pulled out my Cercle de Lune because it's also a woodblock print oracle and it works beautifully. I decided to go with my more Italianate looking oracle, and we'll see if this works or not. I have great trepidation. But we'll start. What are we going to do now? We're going to start off with the 3 tarot cards, and I think they work perfectly. Here they are right now. Friends, you saw that we had from left to right the Ace of Coins, the Tower, and then the 8 of Wands, right? The Ace of Coins, the Tower, and then the 8 of Wands. And I promised you I'd show you the backs of the deck. Here is what the backs of the deck look like. They're very nice, very Italian style. You see at the bottom it says Milan. Yeah? Milano, I should say. It's Italian, Milano. And here's the Ace of Coins. Very lovely card. You see that instead of the place of printing and the printer being on the 2 of coins. Usually the 2 of coins has that banner with the name of the printer and the date. We don't have a date here, but around the coin of the ace, we've got Eduardo Dotti, and then we have Milano down there at the bottom. You see that? Now, it's a very nice deck. Lovely deck. What is the Ace of Coins? It's the beginning, right? It's a seed. A mustard seed. It's a mustard seed of opportunity, but an opportunity that must be cultivated, right? There's the potential for prosperity, but again, it's potential. It isn't the prosperity yet. It's a new venture, perhaps. Potential rewards are on the horizon, but they're potential. It asks for a practical perspective, though, because this is something in the earth. This is something in our work, something practical. Yeah, we might want to take a utilitarian approach here, rather than a whimsical or a passionate or an insightful. We want a utilitarian approach because, again, this is in the earth. So we want to focus on the concrete aspects of life. And considering the idea of the mustard seed being planted, the opportunity for growth, the opportunity for prosperity, for a new venture, a new adventure, but it's one that we want to take on a practical level. So that study, that inquiry that we want to do might be a very practical things, aspects of our transformation. Rather than reading philosophy or reading spirituality, we might want to be studying and learning about practical, utilitarian, useful, day-to-day knowledge about what we're going to be and become, about the journey we're on. Right, at least here at the beginning stages. Now, later on, we might move in the direction more of philosophy and spirituality and that kind of transition and transformation. But right now, we want to take first practical, concrete, utilitarian steps. And that leads us into the tower. Now, I'm reading these cards from left to right because there are no. Well, okay, so there are a couple people on the tower card, yes, but they are not facing in a particular... Okay, so you could make an argument that the two people coming out of the tower are moving from left to right. You could make that argument. But really, the tower is the central figure. There are no really prominent people here with a clear line of sight to indicate whether to read this spread from left to right or right to left, right? So, the tower, what is this telling us? Does this mean that we have an opportunity for disaster? Maybe, but I don't think so. There could be some upheaval here. There could be some power shift on this journey. This new opportunity could feel disruptive. Right? It could call for a rupturing, a breaking open of who we are. Yeah? Perhaps a breaking of our boundaries. Perhaps our boundaries may have been a little too rigid, too constrictive, too constraining. That's the word I was looking for. Too constraining. Maybe we want to crack open those boundaries. Maybe a secret is ready to be revealed. Now remember, we have that book there, and maybe there is a little bit of that essence of secrets here that are ready to be revealed, perhaps from our traditions, perhaps from our roots, from our families, that are revealed, that will help us on this transformative journey that we're on. The opportunity could also be giving us towards an ejaculation. Yeah, an explosion of joy or an explosion of energy, which is here. Which is interesting, thinking of the next card. It could also be an illumination. Yeah, this opportunity from the Ace of Coins, if nurtured, could give us a sense of illumination, of revelation, of enlightenment, of a freedom from confinement, a cracking open, right? And allowing the light to pour in. But again, there's this potential for an ejaculation. Not necessarily a sexual one, although it could be in another reading. But here, I think an explosion of energy, a burst of energy. Because of this next card here being the Eight of Wands, right? The Eight of Wands is, and isn't this a lovely read? Now, it's a facsimile. The background's a little bit dirty. The cards that Patrick Valenza copied are a little bit dirty in some of them, but this is a wonderful facsimile. And the Eight of Wands, rapid action and movement, right? If the tower is a burst of energy, it's a burst of energy that gives us some rapid movement. But remember, this is not a rapid movement. It's not a sprint for a short distance. It's a rapid movement on this long journey. It might call for some quick decisions too, or extreme concentration. As concentrated as perhaps that mustard seed is. It could also be effortless action, yeah? Maybe the planting of the seed and the nurturing of it, the nourishing of it, is not that difficult. So even though in the ACE we're learning the practical aspects of what this journey is going to be, the growing of that opportunity may not take a lot of effort. It could be energized without effort. Does that make sense to you? Have you ever, I'm going to say run. Have you ever been running for a while and suddenly they've got, there's that runner's high, that endorphin rush where you got this burst of energy, but it's not a burst of energy of effort, of striving, of trying really hard, but a burst of energy of joy, of flowing free, right? So this could be that too. That burst of energy of not working hard, but of effortless action, of not working so hard and yet getting a powerful rush of energy. It could also be a reduction to essentials, focused creativity. So the ideas of being focused, of bursts of energy, of doing without effort. It's a very Zen thing, right? If you think of the Tao Te Ching, the book of the book of Tao, I think is the English translation from Lao Tzu, right? One of the verses from the Tao Te Ching, the book of Tao, or Tao, says the master does nothing yet leaves nothing undone. It means that the master, the one who has mastered living an intentional life, if you will, is not working and is not putting effort and striving and working hard to do things, but is doing things effortlessly. Like a skater, a good skater on the ice moves effortlessly, but they're doing something, and they've done something to get themselves in motion, but it's effortless, right? Maybe that's here. So we've got that idea of action, but without effort, because there's this burst of energy, and maybe rapid movement that comes from this explosion of the tower, which is a cracking open and a burst and ejaculation of energy from the planting of the seed of the Ace of Coins. Does that make sense? Gosh, I hope so. We've got 3 oracle cards to look at below, right? This is where I start to get nervous, because these 3 cards on top make absolute sense to me. These 3 cards below, let's see what happens. Okay, so here are the cards. Take a look. They don't look so happy, do they? Friends, those were the oracle cards, right? From left to right, you saw the Butcher, really bloody looking card, the Bayame, the Baymie, I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's what it is, and then the Seraph. Now, the Seraph actually doesn't look that bad. It might look a little scary to you, I'm not sure, but it's not, it looks good to me. And it's called the Seraph, which is the singular of Seraph. seraphim. Now, if you recall, in the Christian and Jewish Bible, yeah, the Judeo-Christian Bible, there are the seraphim, which are angels, kind of, translated. And the seraphim have 4 heads, and I think 6 wings, and they're very bizarre looking. At least the paintings of them that were done, especially in the Renaissance time, and maybe even a little bit of the late medieval, they're a very odd-looking creature, right? You don't see any body, you just see the heads and these wings, and they look bizarre. The seraph is the singular, so we only saw 1 face and then 2 sets of wings, or maybe 4. Yeah? So, that card doesn't look so bad, to me. The 2 before it look very unsettling. So, now, just so you know, last week, especially last week, at this part of the video, I had cards flying across the room, not once, but twice. And I said that I should order a table. I have ordered the table. It is not here yet, but I've got a makeshift kind of table in front of me, so I think we should be okay. Don't worry. So we'll start off with the butcher, right? Not the baker, not the candlestick maker, but the butcher. Here is what the back of the cards look like. The backs of the cards look like this. Yeah, it's a nice deck. It's a little bit bigger than the tarot deck that we saw. It's quite a bit taller, and just a little bit wider. Like I said, the tarot deck's pretty teeny tiny. The oracle deck is a little bit thinner and much taller than a standard, if you will, Tarot de Marseille deck, which is smaller than a standard tarot deck, a Smith-Waite tarot deck, right? Too much information. Right? Okay, so let's move on to the butcher. Here's the butcher. The description in the oracle, in the guidebook, I should say, the description in the guidebook says that the butcher is a hard-working butcher. He chops away raw meat in his shop, carefully cutting equal-sized portions to sell. Although blood spatters everywhere, it is something he has grown quite used to and doesn't seem to notice anymore. So, it's a messy, bloody area, but he doesn't really pay attention to the gore, and he's trying to give equal portions to everybody. So, that's interesting, especially paired up with the coins card, right? He's selling stuff. This is an opportunity. What kind of an opportunity? According to Patrick Valenza, the butcher points to primitive urges or instincts. It's not just a shop or a seller. This is a shop seller of primitive urges of ripping animals apart, right? And those instincts to feed. Raw feelings and emotions are here. Perhaps performing unpleasant actions to survive. Right? It could be violence. It could be inner conflicts. It could be an omen, or it could also be distribution, but the description of the card seems okay, fairly neutral, but then you get into the meanings according to Patrick Valenza, and it turns really negative. It turns really dark, right? Primitive urges and instincts, the raw feelings or emotions. So, what are we saying? We're saying that this is right below the Ace of Coins, that this opportunity, potential, this new venture might not, it could be one of two things, right? It could be unsettling. It could call up our base animalistic nature, our libido, our raw feelings or emotions. Or what? It could be an omen. Oh man, I'm feeling that, okay, so that we've got this, this thing that we're doing is unpleasant. I don't think we want to go there because of the way that the spread seems to be pointing. It might feel unpleasant at the moment. It might feel disruptive. It might feel raw. The planting of the seed might feel raw and uncomfortable. Or it could be instinctual, I suppose. But this next card makes me think it's pointing towards the discomfort. Because of this card, the BMA. And Patrick Valenza describes this figure as the barbaric BMA, who threatens all who foolishly approach his wild domain. Although lacking a head, intelligence, right? The hideous face on the chest screams with rage, sending trespassers running away in fear. And that came right beneath the tower. So this burst of energy, this cracking open may be, so what is this card? This card is intimidation, brute strength, uncivilized behavior, aggression, primitive instincts. Again, we had primitive instincts here. We have here being this card, the butcher, right? And primitive instincts here. Aggression, savage temper. A dangerous, rude, or terrifying person. I think that is pointing towards us. That we want to be careful. At this cracking open, of cracking apart, this burst of energy of the tower might be intimidating to us or others. It might feel rough and brutal. It could feel primitive, right? We might have these urges to become aggressive because of this unexpected burst of energy. Might push us towards aggression, which is not a fun thing at all. But thank God, thank the powers, thank the universe. The next card is the Seraph, which is what? The Seraph is a flaming angel with 6 wings that hovers over a town, keeping watch over the citizens below. Brighter and more glorious than any constellation in the sky, she serves as a divine sign of hope and inspiration. Remember, we had hope in the star card earlier in the previous spread. And this is above, what does this mean? This means purity and holiness, transcendence, aspiration, protection even. A messenger, a spiritual messenger of advice or guidance is possible here, a prophecy. So this is below the 8 of Wands, which is rapid action, right? We had that idea of the Zen master. So this, if we can traverse the dangers of the butcher and the BMA, of that raw, primitive urge, of the aggressive, brutal instincts that might come with the bursting forth of energy, this rapid movement, this can transmute into effortless action, clearing a path in front of us which is pure, transcendent, aspirational. We had the idea in the moon card of intuition and divine message of, it's an oracular card as well, right? In the previous spread, we might get messages, we might get guidance from the divine of how and to use this energy and where to be moving on this journey. But we want to be aware that the burst of energy could steer us off into the weeds, into aggression and savagery, whatever that would mean for you and me. My version of savagery might be very different from yours. And we're not necessarily talking about grabbing a machete and going out on the streets and hacking people into pieces. We're not talking about that kind of savagery. But a burst of energy could turn an anger or frustration that had been suppressed or repressed, could enliven that, and we could start speaking harshly to other people, savagely. We could be brutal in the way we behave with other people. Not necessarily physically gunning them down, but spiritually damaging them with a burst of unexpected, perhaps, energized anger, frustration. You know what I'm saying, right? So, with this burst of energy that's indicated here from the seed that we planted, which is planted and maybe contains the seed of raw feelings or emotions, which energized with the burst of energy in the tower, could be brutal, could be savage, could be primitive, could be aggressive. If we can skirt that and keep moving forward into our Zen master nature, our original nature, that nature that we are, the inert, eternal natures that we are, having these beautiful physical human experiences, we can reach that purity and holiness that is possible for us and receive messages from the universe, from divine, from whatever you want to call what I would say is God, but it could be the divine mother, it could be Allah, it could be Brahman, it could be whoever. You want, whatever you want to call, name that higher self, although I don't like the word higher, the eternal nature that is and exists before all of this manifested reality. We could get messages, information, prophecy, if you will, from that. But we want to be careful. Yeah, that burst of energy could be a little bit dangerous if not directed properly. So friends, here we are at the end of the reading. What do you think? Does that make sense? If I'm glad, now if I just picked, maybe picking these three cards at the bottom ended up being right. Maybe. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Would have just choosing the butcher, which would have been the first card out of the deck, would just leaving it at the butcher have been better? Or was doing this flow of three better? I'm curious. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. I always love to hear from you. And friends, I want to thank you for having hit that thumbs up button and for subscribing to the channel. You are a blessing for me and a blessing for those who are looking for this kind of content. And friends, if you want a reading from me, my email address is below. thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, we'll get you a reading. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.